Hey guys, thanks for joining us as we are about to follow the light, talking about Hulu's The Path. It's season 1, episode 9 already, A Room of One's Own. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us to talk about Hulu's The Path, A Room of One's Own. We are so excited to be back. It is the second to last episode, or as Miaira and I have been saying, it's the penultimate episode. So we're glad to use the word, and we are so happy to be able to talk about it. You might notice Susanna's not with us. She's sorry she couldn't be here today. She had an outside obligation, but Miaira and I are. I'm Zoe Hewitt. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Zoe Said What. That's Zoe Said What. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Miaira Jennings.
And I like how our music is still going with the ooh.
Yes.
Right as we get going. Now, I thought this episode was so interesting, and the way I thought we'd talk about it would be a little bit, mostly in order, but with some jumps, because I felt like that's what would sort of make sense with the themes of the episode. So, of course, we start at the beginning. It opens in Cuzco. And there's a lot of voiceover with about how Cal was told not to let the movement die on the day of Dr. Stephen Meyer's diagnosis. And he actually apologizes to Stephen, also saying that he feels like he's done everything wrong. And during that VO, we see him at the bedside, and we also see him hiking to a scenic spot where he looks out at the city. And I wanted to talk about that specifically because that really goes back to the very first episode when we see the same thing with Mary. She climbs to the top and she looks out around her, surveying the area. So what did you think? Did you think they were really making this connection between Cal and Mary on purpose? Was that more of a coincidence?
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. I didn't connect that. I don't know if Cal and Mary are that connected right now, to be honest. I don't get what Cal's fascination with her is. But I guess we'll talk about that later, maybe, when we talk about Sean and all of that situation. But honestly, I don't get how you can't at least feel a little tiny bit sorry for Cal. I feel like his intentions are not 100% bad. And so I can't label him as a bad guy. Even though he's done horrible things, I still, like, especially in that opening scene, I feel, compassionate a little bit. I mean, he's sorry for what he's done, and I totally believe that he is. I think he has problems, but I mean, I think he's trying to some extent.
It's like he's lost his way in a way. And I think that our sympathy for him has a lot to do also with how good the writing is and really how good the acting is.
Not in real life, just to clear that up. If he was running around killing people in real life, I would not be for it. But yes,
right, but somehow it's in this scenario, in this world, which is interesting. We had a lot of comments on Twitter from last week's episode, so thank you everyone for commenting and tweeting us and watching and listening. And I think that that's interesting how they are managing to pull us into that sort of sympathy for Cal at the same time. And it is funny, I don't feel like Cal and Mary are connected other than, of course, his sort of strange fascination with her.
Yeah.
But when I saw him looking out over the city, that was all I could think about, that it really referenced that first episode so much. Now, do you think that the VO part was made up, the voiceover, or do you think that Dr. Stephen Meyer really asked Cal to look out for the movement, or do you think that Cal took it upon himself?
I totally think okay, so here's the thing. I don't want to say that he's just lying about it. I want to say that he truly believes that he was the next in line, but I don't think he could communicate with him. I think we've seen aspects of that from Eddie and from Sarah at this point, these spiritual moments, but not really with Cal. Am I wrong?
True. No, you're right. We haven't seen as much from Cal. And you're right. The other two have had that.
Yeah, visions, dreams, etc. But Cal really hasn't had any of those moments. So it makes me think maybe he's not really connecting in that way with the Meyerism. I mean, but the season's not over yet, so...
And it'll be interesting if with next season even we get a glimpse of Stephen Meyer while he's still healthy before
I would love
he fell into this coma. Because I don't feel like he's going to die in the next episode, but we'll see.
We'll see.
So, of course, then moving on, Sarah meets Allison. Dun, dun, dun. And she doesn't want to say much other than that she's not having an affair with Eddie. But Sarah basically then offers her further information and says she found Allison's husband's journal. And it has some interesting information in it she references. So in this sort of tit for tat, Allison then fesses up that Eddie has been having doubts. And when she sees how upset Sarah is, she tries first to say, like, hey, at least your husband's alive. He loves you. And then she just gets irritated at Sarah and says, like, get over yourself, woman. And Sarah leaves. And continuing also on that Allison storyline, later we see her reading the journal pages, and she's clearly distraught. We see her putting rocks in her pocket and walking out on the ice. Cut. And then there's this big, I thought she was definitely committing suicide. But it turns out, surprise, she is alive, and she basically turns herself into the movement at the end of the show. And also, after a brief foray into the Detective Abe storyline, we found out that when her husband was actually found in Peru, he had burns all over his hands that, of course, reference climbing the ladder.
Yes.
So I wanted to just continue exploring that Sarah and Allison, and mostly Allison's storyline, because I thought it all tied together. Now, first of all, didn't you think she was committing suicide?
I totally thought she was going out there and, throwing in the towel, everything's over. But just, okay, so initially I thought Sarah was lying about the journal. Then she's obviously not, because Allison has it. And then I'm thinking, well, what's in the journal that is making her this distraught, like you said? And earlier on, I don't remember when it was, but when we find out that he had the burns, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this real? Is his journal talking about his experiences with the ladder, and did he find the light, and did he climb it, and his body's left on earth, but his spirit went up and his hands were burned from the ladder, and it's real, and she's reading it and she wants to join him. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly like my exact line of thinking. I thought that the reason she wanted to commit suicide is because she realized she'd been on this vendetta against Miarism for so long, and surprise, now she realizes, wait a minute, it's all true. Yeah. And so then when she was still alive, actually, I was floored, like,
yes,
what was
like,
in
what
there? Yeah, what happened?
Like,
and
did his
dry.
spirit save her from the ice water? That was such a cool freaking scene. Like, I loved it. And just, the moment at the end when she goes back to the compound, what were you thinking? Because I'm like, okay, does she believe, is she there to admit everything and to just, like, really dive into it again? Or, like, what? I don't know what her motives are now to go back.
So I think she's diving in, and I think the burns on her husband's hands, it was another one of these signs that we've seen of these mystical, is it or isn't it? I mean, clearly burns can be caused from something else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the only, touching a fake ladder that doesn't exist is not the only way to really burn your hands in life. But it's like with the baby last week or 2 weeks ago. Now I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but like with the baby that Sarah seemed to bring back to life, we get these little glimpses where the writers are really telling us, hey, maybe you should start to believe in this mystical end of things.
I'm so glad they wrote that in, because that was awesome.
Yeah, and so do you think we'll see her again in the next episode then? Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I agree. And I thought this was it. I thought, end of the line for Allison Kemp.
That's crazy. They totally, I did not see that coming at all.
No, me either. And of course now I think we're all like dying. I know there have been a lot of tweets about it too now today. And thank you guys for tweeting. It's so much fun to continue the discussion or to start it early. And this question of what was in the journal, and did the detective see something that we'll be hearing about other than the burns, or is that really what the main point of it was? Yeah. And actually, I guess, and I guess also we were confusing it a lot. I guess the detective actually saw the coroner's report, which referenced the burns. The journal was what he was keeping. Yeah. So I guess we're going to see something.
No one else saw that, really.
So, right, so it might not be, and that might not be in the journal then. Yeah. We don't know if he had the burns before if he wrote about it before he died, I guess, either.
I hope we find out.
So, yeah, and I think we will, but clearly there's a lot to the hand burns going on right now.
So awesome.
Yeah. So, great one. I wish that Sarah would come back. Sarah's the actress who plays Allison, because now I feel like even more questions.
I know. Oh, we have to have her back next season, especially after this.
Yeah. So moving on, we've talked a lot about Miairism in the past, obviously, and if you have to actually give up your family members. That came up when we saw Sarah break into her sister's house. And so we were wondering, is it their choice to leave their family members behind? What's going on with that? So that leads us into Hawk. And Eddie and Hawk return from their 10-day walk, and Hawk is absolutely more determined than ever to reunite with Ashley.
Yeah.
And Hawk is nervous about his mom, but Eddie insists, don't worry, he's not going to let Sarah kick Hawk out. It'll all be okay. And Hawk and Ashley have this very passionate reunion in the chemistry lab, which also turns into the fact that, like, hey, Hawk, my family's been homeless, and Hawk's offering to drop out of school and support them. And and Ashley is, like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't do that. But then we have this very awkward family dinner when Hawk announces his intentions of actually staying in school and not taking his vows. And Sarah then announces he won't be able to talk to anyone in the family again. And Eddie doesn't really do much to defend Hawk. The dinner continues. It's pretty awkward. And also during that dinner, Summer makes the announcement that Cal had been staying with the family while Eddie and Hawk were on their walk, which is, of course, a huge surprise to Eddie in particular.
Yeah.
And the next morning, continuing on that storyline, Hawk has packed up to leave. Eddie is clearly torn between his son and his wife. And Sarah talks to Cal and says, do something, like, get my son back. And he basically then bribes Ashley with a house and a college scholarship if she'll leave Hawk alone. So the two break up yet again. I feel like it's this on-off relationship a lot. So they break up again, possibly for good this time. But when Hawk comes home and tells Eddie what happened, Eddie hears him use the same words that Sarah had used with him, talking about Miairism, that the reason they're important is actually because of the movement. So he goes on high alert. And he basically goes into the meeting of all the upper rungs where Sarah and Cal both are and winds up punching Cal. So he takes matters into his own hands. So I know that's a lot to digest in all of that storyline. So I guess starting off, did you think that Sarah would have actually had more sympathy for Hawk since she lost her own sister?
No. I don't like Sarah anymore. I have to admit, last week, when she had that moment with the baby and she was taking initiative and kind of, claiming her leadership role, I was like, yeah, like, I'm liking Sarah more. And now I'm just like, okay, come on. Come on. You're not going to abandon your kid completely. And that, I'm so glad they did answer that question that we've been wondering. Is it just, cut ties once they don't fully believe in Miairism? And it's so sad that that's the case. Yeah. And honestly, as much as I want to say I'm not surprised that she was like, okay, well, go, you won't talk to us anymore, I just feel like Eddie, her love for her children and her family should overpower Miairism, but I guess not.
Yeah, I agree. It was like a hard balance of, on one hand, I was surprised that her son I don't want to say didn't mean more. I guess that is it. He didn't mean more to her than the movement. But on the other hand, I felt like I was also like, okay, of course she's going to pick the movement. We've seen her time and time again shown as a true believer. Yeah. I mean, she is, out of everyone on the show, I think we can all agree, whether you're Team Sarah, Team Cal, Team Eddie, or any combination of the three, that Sarah is definitely in the true believer category here.
Oh, yeah.
So, and what did you think, too, with that whole point that Eddie made of Cal is not your family, he's not your uncle?
I loved that. I'm so glad Summer told that. Yeah. I'm so glad. I'm just glad she didn't. Well, I don't know. That would have been pretty crazy if she did see them kissing and stuff, but that would have been not appropriate, I don't think. Yeah, I'm so glad she told him. I'm so glad Eddie could get upset about that, because Sarah acts like she's so perfect and she's just so honest, and Eddie's doing wrong and Hawk's doing wrong, but okay, honey, you're doing wrong too. And it's time to own up to your mistakes and your secrets and your lies. She didn't tell Eddie that Cal was staying there. And I really hope that he dives into that more, because obviously there's more to find out.
Yeah, right. And the daughter, Summer, confessed about, or not confessed, I guess, mentioned at least, that he had stayed, but of course no mention of the kiss. And Sarah certainly hasn't stepped up to say she transgressed and needs her 14 days in the little room by herself.
Yeah, where's her juice? Where's her, that's right.
And you know what really actually kind of irritated me too? Why should Hawk be the one to drop out of school to support Ashley's family? Ashley wasn't dropping out of school to support her family. Why is it his responsibility?
See, that's the thing. I'm Team Ashley, so let's just start with that. But I was so disappointed that he said that. I feel like up till this episode, I was really feeling like Hawk is just really, he just loves this girl, and, you know, it's an experience that's different from what he's used to, and he's craving, you know, a taste of the outside world. But now I'm just like kind of considering what you and Susanna may have been saying is the fact that maybe, or maybe you haven't been saying this, I don't know, but I'm just considering maybe he's just like young and dumb and like infatuated with somebody who's really not going to matter in the long term. And I hate to say it, but I mean, I can think about guys who I really liked in high school, and I thought, oh man, like this is my forever. And okay, like I haven't talked to them in years, and I'm completely fine, as you can see. But it's just like, I don't want him to ever feel like he's gonna like die and lose everything if he can't have her. But at the same time, I don't want him to feel like that if he doesn't believe in Myrism. Right. So I really don't know what to do, what he should do. I don't know.
What team are you now?
I don't know.
I mean, I have definitely been vocal that I have not loved the Hawk-Ashley relationship because I just feel like she's pulling him away. And not that, of course, you can't be pulled away from this movement. Yeah. But I don't know. I felt like Hawk was such a believer that a genuine, nice, innocent kid that I felt like I guess I didn't want to mess with that. And here she was coming in and messing with that. And then this turned me off even more because now we have her basic, I mean, she did say he shouldn't do it, but here he is feeling like his responsibility is to drop out of school. And I feel like it's great if you want to love her, fine if you decide you want to leave the movement for her, but now dropping out of school. Yeah. So, and I thought it was interesting too that his point wasn't that he just didn't want to take the vows. His point was that he wants to stay in school, which is interesting because it makes it sound like Myrism basically insists that you leave school at 16 then, which I don't think we had really had before.
I think they might do some kind of homeschooling type thing after that point. I think they have education. I heard something like that in previous episode, and please let me know if you guys remember this, but something like that after they leave school they like do their own thing. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about Ashley's decision in breaking up with Hawk and kind of taking Cal's bribe or whatever. I don't know what to think. I don't know if I'm happy or sad about it, to be honest. And first of all, let me just go back and say I totally thought Cal was gonna like hurt her.
Me too. Oh, yes, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. Me too. It was like creepy after school special guy. Get in my car, little girl.
Have something to show you.
I thought she was going to be in the trunk of the car. Seriously. Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes.
I'm so glad she survived that little trip. So I'm like, okay.
A bribe is nothing compared to death.
But just still, I don't know. And I'm hoping, well, I guess she didn't even really tell him that she spoke with Cal.
No, I don't think she told him.
Why?
Because I think then it looks like she's being bribed. She wanted it to be
admitted,
her.
Like she already broke up with him because of her family. So wouldn't it be better for her to just say, listen, I can't afford anything. I'm poor. My family is poor. He said he's going to pay for this, and I don't want to take you away from your family. So, hey, we're going to go our separate ways. I would respect that more than her just like out of nowhere breaking up with him after she already got back with him. Like, you already gave him another chance and you want to make it work, and now it's out of nowhere again after he makes the decision to leave basically for her.
But see, do you think that it was the bribe that made her want to break up with him, or do you think it was Cal's words about how he would be giving up everything for her? Especially Cal turned it around and talked about her family and said, you know, your dad is gone. You didn't have a choice. Hawk has a choice. Hawk could be with his family. So I was wondering if she's doing it more of an altruistic nature and it doesn't have to do with the bribe. That's sort of set aside. So
that's interesting.
And I think that's why she also doesn't want it to be because of Cal, because then Hawk has more of an opportunity to say, oh, don't listen to Cal. I know what I'm doing. I'm a big boy.
That's true. So I think Cal's very smart in the way he played it, now that you say that, because he got both sides. Yeah, he got, you know, he took care of their money situation, and he took care of guilting her into thinking that Hawk would lose everything like she did. So, man.
Which he would.
Oh.
I know. I mean, and isn't it interesting, too, that Cal was the one who stepped up? I mean, I hate to say it, but, like, it made me feel like Eddie wasn't quite as much the big strapping dad of the family that Cal had to go and do it, because Eddie is so torn between Sarah right now and his children.
Yeah, I think Eddie has been so hesitant to fully talk about this situation with Hawk because of his own situation and his own struggles. And so I completely agree with you. I think there were so many opportunities where Eddie could have really talked to Hawk and like really worked things out with him and tried to figure out a solution to these things, and how to confront Cal about the situation, maybe how to talk to Ashley and make it work for everybody. But I feel like he's just scared to even touch that fully right now because of his own doubts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. He's nervous about what else is ahead.
Yeah.
But before we move on, everyone, thank you again so much for listening. Remember, you can take a moment to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us some reviews in both places. Leave us some comments. We love them. We respond to them. So thank you. And thank you for tweeting us also. We love it. It's so much fun to continue the discussion, to do a pre-discussion and any combination thereof.
All week long.
So, moving on. So then we have Hawk and his relationship that are really sort of almost hitting Sarah when she's down already. It's in the midst of her exiling her only son that she's also dealing with reconciling her love of Eddie and her indoctrination into Miairism. She's also, of course, on the hunt for Silas and wants counsel from him because the news of Eddie's doubts have shaken her so much. And when he and Hawk return from their walk, she doesn't actually rush out to greet them, and her first words to Eddie were, "I know about Allison." So she's clearly on that path already. She does confront Eddie and almost seems more upset about her own behavior with Miranda and her embarrassment with it than the actual situation. And then, of course, we finally see Eddie make a definite stand. Eddie says that if he told her what was happening, she would have wanted him in a cell and reprogrammed. She says it may have actually helped, but he puts his foot down for the first time and says, no, it absolutely would not have. But then right after that, we see them having sex together on the kitchen floor, which is almost like a truce in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
She doesn't really know what she wants. She goes to Cal, and she does start kissing him, but does manage to pull back when she says that she needs help with Hawk, and she's desperate. And then, of course, also in the midst of all of this drama, literally, Cal tells Sarah that Steven has finished the rungs and that Steven wants Sarah to actually help lead the next phase of the movement with Cal so that they can be guardians of the light together. So, starting off with probably the most minor point in all of this, why weren't they worried about their kids seeing them having sex on the kitchen floor?
You. Wrote that down. Where did I put? Do kids hear that? What? First of all, she broke the glass. I know that must have been loud. Nobody, okay, fine, whatever. Broken glass downstairs.
I guess they didn't wake up from the glass.
Yeah,
that's how that
exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, in the middle of the floor, like poor little Summer's gonna walk in for a glass of milk and see things she doesn't want to see.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
I was totally expecting at least one of the kids to show up.
Hey, oh well. They were in deep sleep.
They sleep with earplugs.
Yeah.
So in this, talking about being guardians of the light together, do you think that Cal is basically offering up this partnership with Sarah in order to protect his place and gain an ally within the movement? Or do you think that it's more that he's just trying to further his relationship with her aside from all the political wheeling and dealing? So do you think it's more personal or political?
Oh, that's a good question. At first, I thought it was just all relationship. But now that you say that, I'm thinking, well, there are a lot of people that doubt his power, especially Bill and Felicia and the other high rungs or whatever, higher ups, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Upper rungs.
The URs.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking maybe, she trusts him more than a lot of people do, and she would probably be his safety net. So I think you're right. But I'm just, I really don't know where this is going with the leadership thing, because if she catches wind of what he's done, that would be more dangerous for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
If she's a leader.
Yeah.
So
I think that Sarah can overlook and forgive a lot, but I don't think she'll be able to overlook murder, especially of Silas, who she clearly has such a close relationship with. Yeah. And do you think that Sarah actually believes that Cal is making it up? Because she left right after that.
That moment was weird.
And I was wondering, does she know that it's fake?
I don't think she knows it's fake, but honestly, okay, so up until that point, she's just been really gullible when it comes to Cal. She believes everything he says, especially relating to Steven. And I think that was the first moment where she didn't glow and smile at the thought of being, a leader with Cal, and Steven wants me to do this. She just left, like, okay. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a little bit more doubt from her finally.
Right. Because
I hope so.
I couldn't decide either if I felt like she was leaving because she knew that it was a false sentiment, or if she was leaving because she was just so overwhelmed with everything else in her life that she was having a hard time thinking about taking on this additional responsibility, which, I mean, last week was the first time that or was it 2 weeks ago now? I mean, it was the first time that we saw her step up and take responsibility within the movement at all.
I think it was last week, Or 2 weeks, yeah.
No, I think it was 2 weeks now. Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. It could have been a mix of both. I guess we'll have to wait and see what she does with that news before we can really decipher that. But
especially because I think, as of last week at least, I think we were all pretty much in the boat that Sarah is the true leader here.
Yeah,
not
we
Cal.
were. Yeah.
So how will it be when she realizes she's coming into that power? Because maybe she doesn't want to share it with Cal. Maybe she thinks it should be just her.
Yeah, I think Cal's gonna regret that decision.
Possibly, very possibly. Now, with all of the relationships that were ebbing and flowing this week, of course, there's more with Mary. And she confesses about the drugs to Sean, but leaves out the part where she's sleeping with the nurse. And as a side note, I felt like we finally needed the nurse's name, so I actually looked it up on IMDb, and then they used it.
Is it Betsy?
It's Betsy.
All right.
So I thought, I was right on it this week. And then bam, they told us. So it's Betsy. She was sleeping with Betsy. So Betsy goes around giving Sean basically the stink eye the whole time until he finally confronts her. And it looks like they're in the middle of lunch in the cafeteria when Betsy announces in a very loud voice that Mary slept with her for drugs and is probably using Sean the same way. Mary gets upset, of course. She throws water on Betsy and attacks, and they all wind up in Cal's office where big, awkward situation number 2, past that family dinner, they explain things now about what was happening. And Cal decides Betsy needs time off. That will somehow help her. But then he pointedly talks about how you love people for their failings and that marriage is the cornerstone of their movement because it takes so much work to love broken people. To which Mary realizes he must be talking directly to her and promptly declares she wants to marry Sean. So do you think Cal is purposely pushing her to marry Sean? Because it sure felt that way to me.
Yeah, but why? I still don't understand their dynamic. That's probably the one relationship in the whole entire show that I'm confused about, Mary and Cal. I don't know what his intentions are with her. Do you have any idea? I mean, I just don't. I don't get it.
I think she's just an outlet for him, like a vessel. And he's not touching her. I think he realizes that would be going too far, as though murder isn't too far. But I think he realizes that would be going too far across the line. So he doesn't want to touch her. And maybe he feels like if he gets her married off, it will keep his hands off of her. Maybe that's why he's pushing her. Because it sure felt like he was talking also directly to Sean when he was talking about forgiving people for failings, too.
Oh, yeah.
And, we talked about it also last week. Have your feelings changed at all? Do you think that Mary had feelings for Betsy when they were together, or was she using her purely for the drugs?
Drugs.
So do you think she really has the feelings for Sean then, or is it because Cal is pushing her to him?
See, that's the other question. I don't know if she really cares about Sean. I think when we discussed this last week, Mary has some kind of mental disability in some capacity.
Something wrong.
Like, you can just tell.
Yeah.
And so I think she's very impressionable, and whatever Cal hints at, she just goes with. I can't tell if she really cares about Sean. To be honest with you, right now, I'm leaning towards no. Because, however, that moment when she did confide in him about, the drugs, that was, I feel like she was reaching out for help.
Right.
But at the same time, I just feel like she's Cal's puppet in some way. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't quite, unless it's just that thing with her father, that she's used to seeing men in power have that control over her. Because overall, I'd say my opinion is that she does genuinely love Sean. I thought she genuinely loved Betsy too, but then the fact that she went back to Sean. But what was also interesting, and we had talked about this, was the lesbian relationship taboo within Miairism, and it seems like that's not, because Cal didn't address that. She wasn't embarrassed. So I guess kudos for them, chalk one up for Miairism, that they're not homophobic.
Exactly.
There might be a lot of other things, but
a lot of other problems, but good job for being inclusive in that aspect.
Exactly. Go Miairism.
Yeah, that was cool. No one was ashamed or anything when they admitted that, so that was fine. But I'm not convinced that she really cares about Sean. And honestly, I felt so bad for him.
Sean is the biggest pawn in all of this.
Yeah, he's just... I don't know.
I like Sean. I think I'm Team Sean.
Yeah,
Team Sean and anyone.
Too. Yeah, come on, Mary. Don't make any more mistakes.
I know. Don't break his heart, Mary.
Yeah.
So then Eddie, of course, continues to go through lots of trials, as he has since the beginning. And this week, he goes to Sarah's parents for help because he tries to appeal to them to help Sarah come around. But it turns out that Sarah has actually kept their problems hidden from them. And Sarah's dad, on one hand, wants to try and get Eddie reprogrammed, but her mom says it's too late and then declares he is no longer even her son-in-law. So what do you think it means that Sarah hasn't even told her parents about Eddie's doubts? Was she trying to keep it a secret because she knew what her parents would say and she wanted to protect him?
Oh, yeah. Sarah is honestly, okay, as much as Sarah believes in, Miairism and all of that, I feel like she's also all about images. And her family just seems so perfect and happy up until this point. I don't think she wants to spoil that in front of everybody. She already went through the situation with Miranda Frank. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew about what Eddie did with Miranda Frank, supposedly. Obviously, that's not true. Right. I just feel like she wasn't ready to deal with that publicly. Maybe she has to digest it privately a little bit and figure out what she's going to do and what Eddie's going to decide and whatever else before she talks to her parents. Mm-hmm. But on that same note, I feel like that was such a horrible decision on Eddie's part to go talk to her parents.
Really? I thought it made sense in the moment. See, I do think she was trying to protect him. I think she knew her parents would say that he's out then, and she wasn't quite ready, I think, to say goodbye to Eddie. Mm-hmm. So she thought by not saying anything, she can maybe get him to come around. Yeah. And I thought it made sense that he would go to them and say, hey, you lost a daughter. Like, do you really want to lose Hawk? But that surprised you, really?
It surprised me.
But they lost their daughter.
I know, but they're not sorry.
Apparently.
Like, they don't call her up on Christmas or anything. Like, they're not
she's got
looking.
Kids.
Yeah, like, it seems like she's been on her own without them for a while, and they haven't heard from her. So I just feel like at this point, he should know how deep into Miairism her family is. I would not choose them to be the confidants in the situation. But, so be it. I just feel like he dug himself a deeper hole.
Oh, it was so awful. And then, this occurred to me. Did you get the impression at all that Sarah's dad, maybe when they had referred to his transgression earlier, maybe it's that he had doubts as well? Because really? I felt like when he was looking at Eddie, when he even looked at his wife, I felt like there was more of that sympathy. I mean, he wanted to get Eddie reprogrammed so that he could stay. It was the mom who said immediately, you're out, we're done.
It's too late. He's too far gone.
So I thought maybe it was the dad also who had doubts, and it wasn't that he had an actual affair.
Yeah, I was thinking it was an affair.
I mean, that's what we thought at the time, but I'm just wondering now if either they had covered it up or we misunderstood because
maybe
that
we'll
it was led that on purpose.
Maybe they'll tell us one day. I don't know.
One day in the future.
We'll know
what
happened.
So Cal then is also on a final bit of his journey this week. He was meeting with John Risch and what seemed to be a burlesque club. And John's comments were that he really hasn't heard anything since he had Cal beaten up. And it turns out that Cal is there because he basically wants to exchange help for his forgiveness. He wants John to counsel him. Sorry, I can't get those words out for some reason. On real estate, investments, and offshore accounts for long-term growth of the movement. John is willing to help because, surprise, surprise, it turns out Freddy is back. He's in school and he's healthy again. And on the Freddy note, actually, Max was in the studio earlier, so we got to see him again. And if you don't already follow him on Twitter, he told us that he'll be taking over the Hulu account on Sunday because there's going to be a big advanced screening of the finale. So you can watch for him on the Hulu account, you can watch for him on his own account, and hopefully we'll see him again next season in the studio with us talking about his continued role of Freddy. But it sounds like Freddy's in tip-top shape again.
Sounds like it worked. The juice worked, everything worked, so that's good.
Do you think that Cal knew Freddy was healthy when he asked for the meeting, or was that a surprise?
I think that was a surprise.
I couldn't decide.
I think it was a surprise because the way he told him, I mean, if he already knew.
But if he didn't know that Cal knew. Like if Cal had his feelers out and already knew.
I don't know.
Because Sarah was there.
Yeah, I think Sarah.
Although Sarah, I guess, sent him to Silas in Peru, so.
Yeah, I don't know. Did Sarah know? I'm sure she had to have.
I don't know. I just felt like they would have known what happened to him.
Yeah.
And that they basically just weren't telling us, the audience. And then suddenly... Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they're finding out for the first time with us.
I don't know. But I don't know about that.
Well, do you think that he wants the offshore account so he can squirrel money away for himself because he's not a believer and he thinks that he needs an escape hatch? Or do you think it's genuinely for the movement that he wants to
I
set down
honestly thought
roots?
his intentions were for the movement, actually, in that point. And I'm surprised I did, because I don't really trust every single one of Cal's actions, but I really think he's just trying to expand as quickly as possible while he has the power, so that he can maybe take credit for it and grow the movement. He even mentioned, we're getting money basically thrown at us. People are really supporting us. They're believing in us. So I think he just wants to capitalize right now. Do you think it was for personal reasons?
I don't know. Just when I hear offshore accounts, I feel like that's code.
Automatically.
That's code.
Something ain't right.
Yeah, like any TV show or movie, whoever wants an offshore account, they're usually hiding money for something. So I think that if he had just said real estate or help with investments, I think I would have believed it was for the movement. But when I heard offshore accounts, I thought maybe he realizes that maybe he thinks someone will realize that he killed Silas, that it'll come out sooner or later, and he needs to escape.
That's a good point. Might be covering his tracks.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
He needs some money to get out of town, get out of Dodge. Now,
wait, are you going to mention the horse show with the guns on the stage or no?
Please, yes, by all means.
I'm totally joking. So irrelevant, but I just thought that was interesting with the laser beams.
The whole thing, yes.
Whatever.
And Cal was trying so hard, not to look, too, but he wanted to so much.
And that's the thing. I feel like he tries so hard to behave.
Yes, he wants to do the right thing, but he can't, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, something's wrong. Yeah.
And again, this is just a TV show, guys.
Yes,
in
just
real
a
life,
show.
We wouldn't just give him so much credit.
Not
he
at
can't
all.
behave. Oh, that's okay. Kill whoever you want, Cal. No, just because it's a TV show, I think we're willing to sit in this world and accept the world.
Absolutely.
And within this world, he tries. He really does try to do the right thing.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Just in case.
Just in case you guys need to know.
So, do you think, on a final question there, did John feel bad for having Cal beaten up because he felt bad about it? Was it because he realized his son was actually okay and Cal, or the rest of the movement, since it was really against Cal's better, it wasn't what Cal wanted, that, hey, it fixed his son? Yeah,
he totally thinks, this worked. That's it. Point blank period. I think if it didn't work, he'd probably beat him up again. So that's just the vibe I get from John.
Oops, my bad. It worked after all.
So.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered all the major plot points. Tell me, do you have something that you want to add that we should continue to talk about?
I think that is it. Did we talk about Eddie confronting Cal? Did we talk about that already? I forgot.
We mentioned it just in the summary, but we didn't go any further into it. So what did you think then when Eddie punched Cal at the upper rung meeting?
Well, that's the only thing I think I would mention, because I'm worried about the perception of Eddie now. Yeah. On the compound. I know, with the community. I'm worried that if he makes himself look like this, if the news ever got out that he was having doubts, that people wouldn't back him, or they'd just you know what I mean? There would be no sympathy. Yeah. And maybe there already won't be. I don't know. But I just feel oh, man, he maybe needs to be a little careful for now.
And it will be interesting, because you're right, within that realm, when the reason that he punched Cal comes out, and that it's because he just wants to keep Hawk, as part of the family, and that Cal's busy bribing people, people won't have sympathy for him. The true believers of the movement will say, hey, Hawk made his decision, or is going to make his decision to leave, and hey, that's what we say. We don't stay in touch after that. So it will be interesting.
It will. I'm just glad Joy didn't pop up to, make her comments about Hawk deciding to leave.
Yeah, we didn't see her at all this episode.
I'm shocked. Where was she? She would have been the main one.
And we didn't see the new baby either.
Yeah.
That whole part of the family we saw the brother very briefly.
We saw. That's another thing, and this is so random. I don't remember when it was, but when Eddie stood up to speak about his walk at the gathering, did you catch, after he sat back down, Nicole was behind them, rolling her eyes?
No, I missed that.
Yeah, she's such a hater. I'm totally getting that now from her.
So maybe we will see more of that then, because it wasn't in the earlier episodes, but if it's continuing now, maybe they are making a bigger point that
well, that's
she's
what I'm trying to I'm
yeah.
trying to decipher whether or not it's just like a testament to her personality, like if they're just throwing these things in to say, she's just like jealous and bitter a little bit of Sarah.
But what would the point be if there wasn't a bigger reason for it?
People are haters for no reason too, so
but within the world
it could just be like whatever, but we've seen it before, like
well,
we've
only
seen
in that last episode with the baby, we saw it twice.
We saw it in the baby, we saw it when was it? When she was like, "Oh, is the Sarah parade over?"
Same episode.
So
twice in that episode.
I totally caught that this time. I don't know if you want to go back and look for it, but it was there. She was like, "Okay, this is annoying."
So she just hates the whole family, maybe.
Maybe.
And I liked that Eddie, speaking of that part too, he didn't get up there and make something up and say that he really had this big vision. He was honest and said, I realized that my family is it for me. Yeah. That is my truth. And I liked that. But it's interesting then because basically by the end of the episode, the family is the truth for him, but in a different way. It's no longer Sarah, I think. It's his kids.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah. So do you think after he punched Cal, there was, like, that look between Sarah and Eddie was serious at that moment? Like, I felt, up until this point, Eddie is so in love with Sarah. And now I'm thinking he might, be at wit's end with her.
Yes. I thought this was the first episode and the first time that I started thinking, oh, Eddie is no longer drinking the Sarah juice. Yeah. That now it's for his kids. It's not for Sarah anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if he comes back around into the movement or if he's out now.
Yeah, it will be interesting to find that out.
And the final episode of this season is called The Miracle. So I'm hoping, I guess, for some handburns.
So excited.
So should we talk about some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Number one, Allison is a believer again. I'm going to hope that we find out what was in that journal. Number two, I don't know why I feel like Mary's going to die. I've just been feeling that for the whole entire season. I don't know if she's going to overdose. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just feel like she's not going to last. I don't know why.
I'm surprised she's lasted this long, actually. I didn't feel like she was a main character at first, but then it turns out she really is. Yeah.
And as far as Hawk is concerned, I don't know. I feel like something's going to happen where he changes his mind. He can't just leave. It'll be too easy if he just goes.
So you're saying he'll change his mind and
come
stay
back,
in the movement, regardless of Ashley. Okay. I'm on board. I think we will see what's in the journal. We'll hear about it. There will be more details coming from the journal. Yeah. I also agree. I think Allison is back on board. She is a believer. But I think that it's Eddie now taking her place as the official doubter in the group and that he's going to be watching out for his kids. And I also think with this episode coming up called The Miracle that I feel like someone's going to get burned. Like literally. Because we've heard now twice. We've got Felicia with the burns. We've got Allison's husband with the burns. I guess 3 times if you count Dr. Steven too. So I feel like I'm putting my money on The Miracle has something to do, if not with specific hand burns, but fire, which also would finally give us what's going on with the house on fire because we never really, I think that's part of where the ladder came from originally. So I feel like that might be part of where we're going.
Yeah.
So
I'm so excited.
So excited for the last episode. Can't wait. And before we go, Miaira, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Miaira Jennings and YouTube.com/Miaira Jennings TV. Thanks, guys.
I'm Zoe Hewitt. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Zoe Said What. That's Zoe Said What. You can also find me on YouTube at Zoe Hewitt Hosting, where I do a weekly movie analysis show talking about themes, symbolism, and eagle eye details to watch for. I talked about Money Monster this week. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next week for our final episode. Bye-bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.